Imagine this. You are standing in the silence of your last refuge. The walls are heavy stone. The air is thick with incense, and beyond the gates, you can hear the echo of Roman soldiers pounding their spears against the doors. Each strike reminds you that time is running out. The empire you tried to preserve is gone. The lover you shared power with is gone. And outside, a parade awaits, but not a parade of celebration. No, it is a parade of humiliation. They want you chained, dragged through streets, mocked and broken. This is not just any woman's fate. This is the fate of Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt. She knows the choice before her. She can live in chains or die with dignity. And on this hot August night in Alexandria, 30 BCE, she prepares for death. The smell of incense cannot hide the sting of fear in the air. Sweat drips down her back. Her temples throb, but her gaze remains steady. She will not give Rome its spectacle. This is the story of Cleopatra's final hours and the horrible death that made her eternal. Cleopatra was not born into peace or comfort. She was born into a storm of palace plots, betrayal, and ambition. In 69 BCE, Alexandria was the jewel of the Mediterranean, a city of marble palaces, scholars, poets, and trade. And within this glittering city, a young princess grew into a queen who would one day defy the might of Rome. At only 18, Cleopatra inherited the throne. She was young, but she was not naive. Unlike many rulers of her age, she was educated, clever, and fluent in many tongues: Greek, Egyptian, and others, languages that allowed her to charm envoys in their own words and command respect in foreign courts. Writers of the ancient world said her beauty was not what made her extraordinary. It was her presence. Her voice, soft, musical, deliberate, could sway generals and philosophers alike. She walked not only as a woman, but as if she carried the mantle of a goddess. And in Egypt, perhaps she did, for she was often presented as Isis reborn, the divine mother of kings. But power is never simple. Palace intrigues exiled her once. Yet she returned with Roman support, reclaiming her throne. She was not content to be a pawn in the empire's games. No, she would use Rome itself as her tool. Cleopatra understood something powerful, that love, when woven with politics, could be stronger than steel. With Julius Caesar, she bore a son, Caesarion. This alone was enough to disturb the Roman Senate. What if Caesar's heir was half Egyptian? What if the future of Rome itself lay in Alexandria, not in the city on the Tiber? Later, with Mark Antony, she created not just an alliance, but a spectacle. Together they staged their love as divine theater. Cleopatra appeared as Isis, Antony as Dionysus. They sailed on golden barges, with sails dyed in imperial purple, and feasts that dazzled every guest. Wine spilled like rivers, jewels sparkled like stars, and Egypt's wealth glittered in ways meant to remind Rome. Here was a kingdom that outshone even theirs. But such grandeur bred whispers. Romans called her a sorceress. They claimed she bewitched Antony with perfumes, drugs, and charms. Octavian's propaganda painted her as a temptress, corrupting noble Rome with Eastern decadence. In truth, Cleopatra was not enslaving Antony. She was using him, just as he used her. Their union was part love, part strategy, and all ambition. But ambition has its price. The moment of destiny came in September of 31 BCE. On the waters of Actium, Cleopatra and Antony gambled everything. Their fleet, rich with purple sails and silver decks, faced Octavian's navy. But the battle was cursed from the start. Antony's men were sick, starving, and tired. Octavian's admiral, Agrippa, cut off their lines of escape. Ship by ship, Antony's men deserted, swinging their vessels around to fight against their own comrades. Ancient writers tell us that in the middle of the chaos, Cleopatra ordered her ships to break away, to flee. And Antony, unable to resist her, abandoned the battle to follow her. His men watched their general desert them, their faith shattered. In that single moment, the dream of ruling the Mediterranean collapsed. From that day forward, their empire was not only defeated, it was finished. After Actium, Antony and Cleopatra retreated to Alexandria. Their allies deserted them, their generals betrayed them. By July of 30 BCE, Octavian's legions entered Egypt with almost no resistance. Cleopatra locked herself inside her mausoleum. surrounding herself with treasures and promising to burn them before she would let Rome touch them. Word reached Antony that she had already taken her life. Broken, he drew his sword and stabbed himself in the stomach. But death did not come quickly. Writhing in agony, bleeding, he begged his attendants to carry him to her. The doors of her mausoleum would not open, so ropes were tied around his body, and slowly, painfully, he was lifted up through a window. Blood dripped down the walls, staining the stone. And there, finally, he collapsed into Cleopatra's arms. She cried over him, tearing her garments, pressing his blood to her face. Antony, with his last breath, begged her to trust Octavian's officer. Then he was gone. The general who once ruled the eastern half of Rome died not on a battlefield of glory, but in a queen's arms, undone by despair. After Antony's death, Cleopatra was alone. Her once vibrant body was now thin, her eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights, her complexion dulled by fasting and grief. The Romans said she looked broken, but in Egypt, she was still painted as divine, serene, eternal. Inside her mausoleum, the air was heavy. The August heat of Alexandria pressed against every stone. Her attendants sponged her skin with cool water, but sweat returned instantly. She fasted, prayed, dressed in garments of Isis. She spoke little, but when she did, her words carried the weight of ritual. Outside, Alexandria trembled under Roman occupation. Messengers told her that Octavian promised her children might live if she surrendered. But Cleopatra dismissed such talk. She would never be paraded in chains. Not for Octavian, not for Rome. And so, on August 12, 30 BCE, Cleopatra prepared for her death. She bathed one last time. She perfumed her body. She placed the royal diadem on her head. Fruit baskets were set by her couch, and among them, figs. Some say a serpent was hidden there. Others say she carried a poisoned needle or an ointment of exotic venom. No one knows for sure. But what we do know is this. Cleopatra did not wait for Rome to decide her fate. She chose it herself. Her limbs grew heavy, her breath slowed, and her eyes dimmed. IRAs, overcome, collapsed lifeless at her feet. Charmian, faltering, adjusted the diadem on her queen's brow. And when Roman soldiers burst through the doors, they did not find a prisoner. They found a queen lying in silence, surrounded by devotion, as if already immortal. Octavian was robbed of his trophy. Cleopatra would not walk in his parade. But her death gave him something else, Egypt itself. The wealth of the Nile flowed into Rome. Its grain fed the empire. Its treasures financed his rise as Augustus, the first emperor. Yet Cleopatra was never forgotten. In Rome, she was mocked as a temptress. In Egypt, she was remembered as a goddess who chose her end. Her death closed the book on 3,000 years of pharaohs. No dynasty would follow her. No temple would pray for a living queen. But mystery gave her immortality. Poets, chroniclers, and historians reshaped her death for centuries. Some made her a warning, others a heroine. Shakespeare would call her the world's greatest queen. To the Victorians, she was the fatal beauty, entwined with serpents. To modern scholars, she is a ruler who faced impossible odds. Her tomb has never been found. Her body lies hidden, her story unfinished. And perhaps that is how Cleopatra wished it. For mystery, like power, endures far longer than stone. And now, as your eyes grow heavy, let Cleopatra's story drift into your dreams. A queen who refused to bow. A woman who chose her own ending. Good night, Crescent Moon.